everyone, it's Melanie, and welcome back to Living Luxuriously for Less, where we celebrate, decorate, and enjoy everyday life for less. Well, as you can tell from the title of this video, I have a treat in store for you guys on today. And I think that this video will definitely be useful for those of you who are in event planning or design or decor or any business for that matter. The treat making business, it could be a clothing or makeup business, whatever business or scope that you're involved in. I definitely think that you can take some pointers away from today's video. So with that being said, if you guys are interested in these 10 things that you should not share with your client in your event planning, design, or decor business, stay tuned. Okay, so let's start with the item number 1 on this list of 10 things that you should never tell your event planning client, and that is your direct costs of goods and materials. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be transparent with your client, but there are some costs and discounts that you may be privy to in your business that you may not want to share with your client because they can go out and do that for themselves. Thus, you'll be knocking yourself out of business. Now, I'm not saying to go on and add an additional cost onto that cost. Some people do that. I choose not to do that in my business, but I also choose not to share my direct resources. And that's just a personal preference for me. Now, the next thing that I feel like you shouldn't share with your client in your event planning business is that you shouldn't tell them things that you don't know for 100% that you can actually do. If there's a certain design or a decor element that they would like to add to their event, I feel like you need to go ahead and do the full-blown research on that before you commit to being able to do it. There is nothing worse than disappointing a client on the day of their event because you told them you could do something that you were not 100% certain that you could do. So I always like to under-promise and over-deliver when it comes to things like that. It just puts me in a better position with my client. And then when I show them exactly what they wanted or that they wish for, it is always a much better reaction than if I told them I could create this cake and I actually gave them this cake. Okay, so yeah, I think that is so important for us to be able to do in our business, and that is just to be transparent with the client on what we're capable of delivering. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing that you should never tell your event planning client, and that is your design idea. You should never give them like the blueprint before buying the house, so to speak. You buy the house, you invest in the land, and then you get the blueprint. So that is kind of the same approach that I like to take with event planning and design. I have had several situations where I've given a client an entire layout, all of my ideas, and they decided to go with someone that was cheaper, or they decided to DIY it themselves. And so part of what we do involves our creativity. It is a huge part of what we do. And by giving them your design and idea up front, they can use that information to go and secure, what they need to secure, or to book another vendor, and then they would still produce that event using your idea. So in order to prevent yourself from getting into a situation like that, my advice would be that you wait until that individual or that client pays a down payment and or sign a contract before you release that information to them. That way, even if they decide at some point that they want to go with someone else and you've already been compensated for your creativity, and that is kind of in a form of a retainer. So if you guys are interested in more information like that, then I highly suggest that you take my pricing, establishing pricing and packaging class. And then I'm also going to be doing a class on how to have a consultation with the client and not share all of this information up front, yet, still get across to them that you're capable of performing that job. So stay tuned for that. And if you're interested in that class, then I'm going to leave a link down below where you can go and check it out, because it is definitely value added to you and to your business. So the fifth thing that you should never tell your event planning client is your personal business or personal issues. You want to keep it professional at all costs. I have found that when you kind of mix your personal life with your professional life, it complicates things just a bit. So it's just better to keep things very professional. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a personal touch. You should, but you just want to keep the two separate. Number 6. And then this is so hard to do at times, but you should never tell your event planning clients another client's budget. It is definitely a breach of confidentiality. Now, I know when you're working with them, they may show you an event and ask you, well, how much did this event cost? And, there's a way to handle that without giving them an exact figure in terms of, what that person paid. I would say, it depends on the number of guests that they had, and there are several other factors that go into the total pricing and the total cost of an event. So something like this could range you from X to Y, but it doesn't mean that you've given them that exact figure that client paid or what that client budget was, because you want to be able to maintain the integrity between you and those previous clients and also future clients, because some clients may feel, as though they can't trust you with that type of information if you readily provide that information in a consultation. And I know that this has happened before, because I've had, clients to come to me and they've been consulting with, other designers that were extremely professional and extremely talented. But when that individual shared with them someone else's budget, it was an extreme turnoff for them. And they in turn, came to me. Now, what I did not do was engage in a negative conversation, which brings me to my next point. You should never engage with in a negative conversation with your client concerning another vendor or individual, because you just never know what those relationships may look like and how that client may perceive that conversation. So even though the client told me that, I just kind of listened, but I had nothing to offer in terms of negativity regarding the decision that planner or designer had made. I actually said something like, well, we all make mistakes, and maybe they didn't consider it a really big deal to share that information with you. They just wanted to make sure that you had a very clear insight on the expectations in terms of costs that were involved in producing an event of that magnitude. And then I just moved on to something else, because I definitely want to keep things professional and none drama, none messy when it comes to dealing with my clients. So the 7th thing that you should never share with your event planning client is another vendor's prices. And I know that this is so tough to do, especially when you've worked with the vendor before and you kind of know what their pricing may be. But it is just it's just not our business to share someone else's prices unless they have provided for us an updated list of what their pricing is, and it's out line, it's listed by line item. I think it's very, very unprofessional for us to share another person's pricing, even if we're familiar with what they charge, because it's not for us to tell. There are so many things that could change. They could have increased their prices. They may be able to give that person some type of discount, and then the client may be looking at you like, you told me that they charged $500, but they really only charging me $250. So were you going to pocket the other $250? So just by not sharing those things, you keep yourself out of those sticky situations. So number 8, the 8th thing that you shouldn't tell the client is that You can do something outside of the realm of your contractual agreement. When you do this, you can definitely get to a point where you're overwhelming yourself. And if you don't write it, you buy it. And what do I mean by that? If it's not a part of your contract, oftentimes you end up spending time and money doing something that you did not, originally agree to do, or you don't have a contractual obligation to do it. The ninth thing that you should never tell your client is a personal opinion about their significant other or a family member or someone that's there, with them. You can't say, well, I think this person is too controlling, or your bridesmaid is really a hater. Even though they may be, you may be able to see that. You may be able to recognize some character flaws, as we all have them, but it's not your responsibility to point those things out to your clientele. It is only your responsibility to deliver on what their expectations are. And I know that sounds really tough, but you guys, we really have to stick to that, because again, we want to present ourselves as professionals and we want to be respected as such. Okay? All right. So the next thing that you should never, ever tell your client is that they can pay you later, or that you can give them a premature price quote. Now, this is kind of two-pronged, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this one, if you guys don't mind. Everybody gets a contract. I don't care if it's your mother, father, sister, brother, auntie, uncle, cousin. Even if you're doing it for free, you still need to outline those things and those expectations in your contract so that you can avoid future disturbances. Okay. So you don't, everybody gets a contract, and in that contract, it should include your invoice. So even if that invoice is zero, you still have some type of agreement in place, even if you're bartering a service, okay, that will protect you legally. So everybody gets a contract, number one. And then number two, you need to make sure that contract is fulfilled and all payments are fulfilled before you fulfill your services, because you cannot render. You cannot go back and collect your flowers and get your return on investment after you've already delivered the flowers and the tablecloths and the wedding has already happened. I've never seen a situation that a person has been allowed to be paid later and that they're actually paid. Like, it doesn't happen. So get all your money up front so you're not upset. And if you allow this to happen and you don't get your money up front, then just be upset with yourself. Don't be upset with that individual because you breached your own contract. And, unfortunately, these things happen. And they happen with people who are the closest to us. So just protect yourself, protect your business, and protect your finances. And my rule of thumb is this, okay? If I don't have the money to waste, I don't have the money to give. So if I cannot afford to not get it back, then I don't give that money, period, point blank at all. And that just really prevents me from being upset in the long run. Now, the second part to that is that you don't give them a premature price quote. A lot of times when you're dealing with individuals, they want to know, the first question they have is, how much will this cost? But you need to take the ample time to research every single aspect of the cost that is going into you producing that good or that service for their event. Because if you don't do that, you're leaving a lot of hidden costs on the table, and in the end, you're going to end up paying for it. Again, if you don't apply it, you will buy it. So if you don't apply it or include it in their contract, it's going to end up coming out of your profit, and then it's going to reduce your overall profit in the end, and the only person that's going to end up suffering is you. So if you want to know more about these hidden costs that I'm talking about, because there are 3 different costs that makes up the total price of the event, if you want to know more about that, I'm telling you guys, this pricing strategy class is something you don't want to miss out on. It will definitely help you. It will help you to create your packages and your pricing. It will take you through step by step. That is all I talk about. The class is 3 days long, and so you can take it at your own pace. It's I think 2 hours each day, and you can kind of move and take it at your own pace. But I promise you, when you come out of this class, you will have every single thing that you need not to deliver premature pricing, and to always make sure that you're making happy money. One of my formulas that I always teach my students in Lux Academy is simply this: the blessings of the Lord makes you rich and adds no sorrow. So we should always be in a situation where we're making happy money and not sad money. And a lot of times when we give out premature prices and things like that, we are making sad money because we end up spending money out of our pocket that we did not necessarily budget for. And when we do that, we lower our profit. And sometimes we end up not making money at all from these events. We end up in the red because we've overspent in order to create that vision that's in our head. So definitely, take the class. Again, I'm leaving it down below. It's pre-recorded, so you can take it at your own pace. And then I will have a live where you can kind of ask me questions, and I'll make that announcement in terms of when the live will be and what time it will be, so that you guys can, ask me questions. So I hope that one helped you. It is probably one of the most common mistakes that we make as, whether we're advanced or intermediate or beginning, amateur event planning professionals or designers or decorators. So definitely check that out. And so our final tip the final thing that we should never tell an event planning client is that something is wrong until you have a solution, or if you fixed it, or if you were able to fix it, you don't even need to let them know that it went wrong. Like, it just creates drama and nervousness and chaos that does not need to exist. So if I'm working with a client and something goes wrong, and I'm able to fix it, I just fix it, and it's just a part of my job. Okay? They don't need to worry about all that. If the cake came and it got nicked, and I was able to get Rachel to smooth that nick out, and it was like it never ever happened, then they don't even need to know that something happened with the cake. Like, that's just unnecessary information. Okay? But if the cake came and it was knocked over and it fell to the ground and it was crushed and it was irreparable, then there's a decision that needs to be made, right? So once you have solutions in place, you could tell them, hey, I can get a fake cake from Rachel. It will look just like your original cake, but then I can go back and order a sheet cake from Sam's, and we will serve the sheet cake from the back. Or B, I can get another designer to create this cake. However, it's going to cost X amount of dollars, XYZ, XYZ, W, XYZ. Okay. Or C, I can go to Publix and get a smaller cake done for this price, and you can cut this cake and serve this cake and etc. XYZ, XYZ. Okay. So now I have 3 solutions I could take to the client. And I'm not just taking to them an issue, I'm also taking to them a resolution. And it makes things go over a whole lot better. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for, Melanie Madness. I am having so much fun sharing with you guys all month long. If you have not been able to catch up on all of the videos, I do have a playlist, and I will link that playlist down below. I think it will be helpful for so very many of you. If you're here for the first time, I would love to welcome you to be a part of the Lux for Less family. All you have to do is click on the subscribe button down below, big old red subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so that you will not miss out on any future uploads. Thank you guys so much for all of your continuous and unwavering support. And until next time, it's Melanie with Living Luxuriously for Less. Cheers.